Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy, and this is your home for everything Alberta independence, broadcasting live 6 days a week. Starting next week, we're just going to have a 5 p.m. broadcasting as we transition the show, get new assets, new songs, things like that. Hopefully tighten it up and bring it up a level there. If you could only see Nat before the show, she's always in such a panic trying to get ready. Yes. She's literally putting on her makeup like... Okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
And I had to do a bunch of other things, but he likes everything to be very planned and meticulous, and I'm Mexican.
Well, she's breaking me down over time.
Not that much. He's not the happiest camper when I'm running in.
I don't mind. I don't mind.
But here we are. Hold on. Oh, my voice isn't even here.
I thought I was getting a little bit sick. I thought I was getting a little bit sick this morning, but I went out for a walk and I'm feeling a bit better now. So
like a ghost. Clearly, I was running to do my makeup. But first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe. It really does help us out, even if we're running late all the time. Also, we try to read all your comments live. But if you feel so inclined and really, really want your comment read, you can always super chat and we pause the whole show for those. And also we have memberships.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we get into it? Well, I don't think we have any comments but mine, so...
Well, yours isn't showing up. That's what I was trying to figure out as well.
Oh, it's not. Reason. The wave?
So, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, because it came in before mine. Okay, that makes sense. So I hadn't opened the program before you.
Well, let's get right into the breaking news. And I grabbed a clip from Danielle Smith and I seen a secondary clip. So I don't know... if what she said about the Quebec referendum is actually in this one, but let's check it out.
All over the place. Yeah. Let's go to breaking news.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about
it. And starting with hold on. Bruce McGonigal says, quote, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith gushes over all the benefits and leadership Quebec has provided for the Alberta economy. Danielle Smith insists her government caucus and party supports staying in Canada.
There's just so many things wrong with this. The amount of welfare payments Quebec takes from Alberta. Now, I do appreciate the Quebec independence movement, and I'm in big support of that, as well as Saskatchewan, as well as Alberta. But Danielle Smith here is just a living contradiction. She supports Quebec independence, it seems like, but not Alberta's. Let's go into it.
I'm here to reinforce the Alberta-Quebec relationship to ensure our governments, our economies, and our peoples are building strong, autonomous provinces within a united Canada. Like Quebec, our relationship with the federal government hasn't always been easy.
And let's stop it there. Strong autonomous provinces. This is what she keeps saying, but she keeps doing the opposite. Signing federal MOUs with the government, trying to make deals with British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Quebec. This is the federalization of natural resources happening in front of your eyes. If she wanted true autonomy, she would build pipelines going from Alberta directly to the United States, completely cutting the federal government out of everything and every other province as well. This would give Alberta maximum autonomy. Yet what happens? Every single pipeline that's built is built through another province. So they don't have their autonomy. So other provinces have a say. So the federal government has a say. I don't like what's happening. I didn't like the MOU. She agreed to retroactive carbon taxes and other regulations to pipelines that are already built before there's a shovel even in the ground.
Easy. We've both dealt with an Ottawa that has refused to listen to our needs and ignored the constitutional rights of our provinces. But in Alberta, we are paving the way for our province to move forward. We're asserting our jurisdiction where we need to, and we're also negotiating hard with the federal government to ensure that we can break down the obstacles faced by businesses and investors who want to do more business in Alberta. I know that some of those people are in this room today. I met many of you in the reception, and that's why I was proud to sign an historic energy agreement with the federal government, which removes the barriers that were blocking investment in Alberta and will enable us to continue our economic growth for decades to come. And you as key members of the...
And let's just be clear on this in case there are any Quebecers maybe watching, because we do support independence in Quebec as well. That being said, this MOU she signed is an absolute lie. It's a hoax. It will federalize natural resources in the long term. It agrees to retroactively charge taxes on a lot of the oil already coming out of the ground. If you're in Quebec, I know there's a lot of mining resources that you're currently taking out of the ground, even though you don't want to touch your oil and natural gas, primarily natural gas. Do not sign MOUs with the federal government. They are not a good idea. They're going to bind you to the federal government. And my big question is, if Alberta gets its independence, is it going to be held to these contracts which she's signing before?
Quebec business community are foundational drivers of that relationship and partnership. Your companies, organizations, and associations allow Alberta and Quebec to flourish economically, both individually and together. We as a province are grateful for the work done by those right here in this room to build our alliance to what it is today. But this is only the beginning, and our work is not going to end here. I'm also calling on each of you to help me as we strengthen our relationship between Alberta and Quebec. I actually met a former Air Force personnel from Quebec on the plane, and he proposed that our new alliance can be called Alberbec. I thought Madame Frechette might prefer Queberta, but we'll come up with something.
And no, we don't want this alliance that she's trying to build is a federal alliance. She already has a Western federal alliance going against Alberta independence. She also has another alliance with Alberta and the federal government. All the politicians are lining up on one side. And what we see happening in Quebec as well is a lot of liberal politicians are stepping down and trying to take positions within Quebec. They're trying to infiltrate the Quebec independence movement, I believe. This independence movement, especially in Alberta, is citizen run. So what I want to kind of happen in Quebec is the citizens to raise their voice. Also in Saskatchewan, also in British Columbia, we don't need the politicians' help anymore. They can't make a change. They make promises, but they can't stick to those promises or deliver.
But we should do everything that we can to boost trade ties, partnerships, and collaboration between our two great provinces. Which brings me to another question that many may have, which of course is about the referendum question that I announced a couple of weeks ago. And I know that in Quebec, you're familiar with the use of referenda to consult your citizens on the future course of your province. And I do appreciate this opportunity to share with you my thoughts on this moment in my home province. In Alberta, it's a little bit different. It's not party-led, it's citizen initiative-led. We had a citizen-initiated referenda process that allows for citizens themselves to bring forward important questions for a public vote. And it's designed to ensure that citizens, not politicians and not governments or the courts, have a direct.
It's designed to ensure over a 2.5-year process. Albertans have a lot of work to do to shorten this process now. Part of that is going to be having a leadership review of Danielle Smith, probably after October 19th, as well as taking over the UCP. We very well in Alberta may have a party-led initiative at the end of this thing if we're able to take over the UCP.
Mechanism to have their voices heard on issues they believe that matter to the future of our province. And that process is now playing out before us. Between two opposing petitions, one of approximately 700,000 Albertans have signed on requesting a question on the vote of Alberta's future within Canada. 400,000 signed one petition and 300,000 signed another, including separation from Canada. But this isn't the only important question that Alberta will be considering this October. Albertans will also vote on 9 questions I have put forward, government-initiated questions, dealing with issues of constitutional jurisdiction, immigration. We're very encouraged by Quebec's 1991 Quebec-Canada Accord on Immigration and are looking for a mandate to develop something similar to that, as well as Alberta's relationship with the federal government. And I have made my position very clear on the issue of our future with Canada. I want to strengthen Alberta autonomy within a united Canada. That means that Alberta remains a province within Canada with more autonomy to manage our affairs. And that's
okay, and you can leave it there. And I think honestly, I think she's soft pitching this idea of we should have citizen-led questions about immigration and things like that. That would muddy the waters for Quebec as well. And she's trying to pitch it as a good idea to them. I also don't like how she keeps tying Alberta to all these other provinces and the federal government with every single MOU that she signs. The United States is right there. They're not going to charge you all these carbon taxes and everything else. Build a direct pipeline to the United States and cut the federal government completely out if we're even going to do any kind of natural resource development before October 19th.
Well, but it's also interesting that we have been kind of hammering on about how important it is to have the conversation, a national conversation with Quebec also bringing up independence and looking at their own independence and seeing how we can bring this to the forefront as citizen-led, or, well, in Quebec's case, party-led, but citizen in a way-ish as well, led independence movements. But now if they're trying to merge both provinces together and start all these talks and negotiations, it might be because they see that as a real threat. So that we might be right on target, as I think we've been for a while.
Well,
now.
yeah, I think we're right on target. The problem is, I think Danielle Smith is seen as some kind of conservative leader, where she's definitely a federalist at this point. And I think she may be poison pilling the PQ over there, who is a real independence party. They have a young, charismatic leader, and she's going over there trying to say, oh, we need to unify in our movements. The PQ needs to realize Danielle Smith is not a supporter of independence in Quebec or Alberta or anywhere else in the nation. A matter of fact, a lot of people in the independence movement right here in Alberta want to get rid of Danielle Smith as soon as possible.
And it's because of the narrative from, for example, the NDP and even some other more federalist entities, the Forever Canadians, etc., that have been trying to paint her as, oh, she's a separatist, oh, she's helping them. But she's kind of stuck in or her reputation, I would say, is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because she can't be painted as a separatist because she's not, but she also can't be painted as a federalist because they're not letting her come in and help them, even though she would be the best asset they have.
Well, I have been reading a lot of articles and things like that. The Federalists are starting to ease up to Danielle Smith and bring her into the fray, I believe. I believe they realized that she burned her bridges with the independence movement. So now they're looking at her as, well, maybe she is the best spokesman for federalism, but it's going to take a little while. They have to transition her in. They can't just do it overnight like they did with Mark Carney and the MAGA hat situation he had the other day.
Well, because they have to. Again, she's the only one that's making a semi-case for them, or at least the best case that they have, which isn't a good one.
Well, Poilievre is making an absolute horrible case. The fact that he's going to stump on the...
hug Alberta.
Well, it's almost like he's intentionally going to tank his career if he comes on the ground within Alberta. And that would, I think, lead way to Danielle Smith taking his role as the federal opposition leader.
Maybe. But now we'll go into your comments and then into Alberta Stay Free.
Yeah.
Todd, hello, Todd, says, it's so obvious Canada sucks for a while. And says, Presidente said, so why is no one listening to us or the Americans? Because it's not convenient for them to listen.
Well, and maybe I'll speak to the audience for a minute. I've been watching a lot of different videos about people talking about the collapse of Canada. Now, they're not from Alberta. A lot of these people are actually from Ottawa, and they're pointing out what's happening with Canada. If you do come across these videos, subscribe to these individuals. This does Alberta a big help. It starts a national conversation about the collapse of Canada on a national level here. And there's no hope for the Conservatives to get into power for at least another 3 years. So these content creators that aren't talking about Alberta, but are talking about the collapse of Canada, it only helps Alberta really put the federal government on their back foot. So if you see these channels like this talking about topics like this, subscribe to those channels, because I think overall it will help.
And we've also been saying that about the bigger national content creators for a while as well, that they're kind of also doing our job for us. And now, especially with this technical recession that they're having to announce and all the rest of the issues that are bubbling up to the surface. I mean, we titled the stream the USMCA deal that Mark Carney probably won't be able to get. Again, it's compounding, and it's getting harder and harder for them to be able to even try to make a case to say, oh, we have to stay in Canada, because Canada makes no sense now, even less and so than a month ago, I would say.
Yeah.
Todd also says, stubborn or just dumb? Which one? President Trump, I guess he's asking. Or Danielle, maybe. I don't know. Stubborn, I would say.
Well, with Danielle Smith, she's just...
Just for other interests.
She got a lot of pressure on her, and she's trying to figure out which way to go. And I think she has her eyes on Ottawa now. Ever since that MOU, it's very obvious her eyes are on Ottawa, and she's taken aside from that.
And Todd also says, as soon as the sun comes out, my grass is going to grow so fast, I bet you can see it grow. But then you have to go cut it more.
Well, and I also think Danielle Smith is right in line with federalizing natural resources through this MOU and other agreements. And she's going to pitch that to national conservatives as she's the right choice for the national leader once they kind of get Poilievre out of power through probably some kind of non-confidence vote at some point. Probably bring a Kinney or Doug Ford in there temporarily, so there's a big backlash, and then drive Danielle Smith in. I highly doubt Danielle Smith will be the leader in power in Alberta by the time the second referendum comes around.
We'll see. Troglodyte, hello, says, hello, freedom lovers. Hello. Thomas Muse says, hello, freedom peoples. Carbon tax is also such a scam. Nature needs CO2, and Canada is a carbon sink. But it doesn't matter how many times we say it. Canada has too many trees that suck out too much carbon, which makes it so, even with the production Canada has, it's actually outputting negative carbon.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about this. We obviously know what it is, and we should talk about about it for what it is, not how it's fraudulent. It's a control mechanism by the federal government to federalize natural resources. That's it, point blank, period. It's not for anything else. Why do we know that? Because every other country around the world has dropped it or paused it, except for Canada. Mark Carney is the economist behind the infrastructure that was supposed to build the new economy. It was supposed to be built on carbon taxes, and it was a control mechanism from the globalists, from the elites within their own countries over the citizens.
Troglodyte says, being an but the ones against independence sure are bitter and angry. It's not please stay, it's bullying and name-calling elitism.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which just, again, helps everybody realize what they're going to have to continue to deal with if they stay.
Yeah.
And Todd says, Slang in the Biscuit podcast is awesome for exposing Mark and liberal crapita.
Oh, fantastic. I'll check it out.
I think you've seen it. We played it before, I think.
Maybe I've seen it. I just don't recognize the name. But
I think it's a mechanic guy.
Oh, yeah.
That says curses a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's go into Alberta Stay Free, and then we'll continue reading your comments.
Sweet home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
And we have quite a few things in the Alberta Stay Free section today. We're going to show some AI advertisements coming out from Corey Morgan, which I like, and maybe some improvements we can make or a direction we can go so we don't have to pay for ad time for the AI advertisements. I kind of want AI advertisements that are self-replicating, meaning people will post to themselves, things like this.
Starting with from Brian Lilly saying, quote, this isn't rage baiting. It's all in government documents. It will, however, induce rage if you read this. And remember, during this whole time, Canada has had high unemployment overall, but dreadfully high youth unemployment. Michelle Rampel-Garnier says, quote, Liberals spent $1.6 billion on temporary foreign worker programs. New data shows with Canada in a recession, the temporary foreign worker program must be immediately abolished, not subsidized by the taxpayer.
Yeah, the foreign worker program, period, needs to be abolished. And this is going to cause an uproar because this is the number one issue in Alberta when it's polled. Now, people won't say it outright. They're still embarrassed. They don't want to be called a racist or whatever else. It's not about racism. It represses wages. It puts Canadians last. It puts immigrants first. This is also the number one issue in Quebec, and it's quickly becoming the number one issue across Canada. Mark Carney says he's stopping immigration. No, he's shuffling it around. It's the same amount of mass migration that is coming into the country, just in different ways.
And again, continuing to try to hide it or even trying not to talk about it, because I do see a lot of even content creators or people that are for Alberta independence trying to skirt around the issue, less so now that especially the figures and also the technical recession has come out. But I think, again, because when polled, it is one of the highest agreed upon issues that needs to change. Even Danielle Smith is putting it on her little 9 other referendum questions, even though she already has a mandate to do something about it. Going hard at this, especially now seeing how much they spent, $1.6 billion, and how much the program isn't working and is being taken advantage of, just works once again to our advantage. So yeah, let's continue to talk about not just that, but also immigration in general and how it's been misused and nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as you were mentioning, Corey Morgan says, quote, when the Forever Canadian promoter wants to chat, there really is only one question. We stay and do what?
And this was a good ad overall, and the AI was actually very good. Even the voice was fairly decent compared to other AI ads that I've seen. So whoever did this did a great job. So let's take a look at it really quick.
Hey there, neighbor. I see you have a Forever Canada sign on your lawn. Listen, I'm not a separatist, but I am trying to figure out how Canada gets back on track, and the status quo is not an option. I know Premier Smith thinks she has a bird in hand with the MOU, but I don't see it that way. So let me ask you, we stay and do what?
And that's great, especially for people within the independence movement that know this, but a lot of people don't know the messaging coming from the other side that we need to stay. So I don't know if it's going to hit, and then we're going to have to pay for that advertisement to kind of get out there. Shows like ours will play it, and you have to really look at other political movements around the world that have that have a lot of similarities to Alberta independence. And the number one movement has to be Rupert Lowe, even though he's the leader of Restore Britain has a leader. Faith, family, and freedom is also their slogan. So it's related in a lot of ways. Also, they're trying to dethrone Reform UK, which a lot of people are seeing as a puppet government now, and trying to, it's kind of the skin suit of what they were supposed to be. They're no longer against mass migration. They're actually inviting mass migration into their party.
And also, speaking of another good, I would say, AI campaign that it didn't cost him that much is Spencer Pratt in Los Angeles. And right now we might be seeing the fruitful effects of it. But I mean, he went viral just because of the way he was going at his campaign with it. And I think looking at things like that, and even things that, once again, individuals can do almost by themselves or on a very cheap basis, will be useful. Again, let's not just wait until somebody does something for us.
Well, and I would also say Restore Britain is very much, a lot of the people that are running within that party are just average citizens, and they're trying to pitch it as a grassroots movement, even though they do have a leader. There are a ton of similarities. I pay pretty close attention to British politics, and Restore Britain, people need in Alberta independence, in the independence movement, really starting to pay attention to what they're doing and what they're doing right, because they're doing a lot of things right now.
And next, I really hope this doesn't ever happens to me, but Hank Rowan says,
well, I hope that never happens to me and I don't turn to a woman like the Canadian man there.
But it says, honey, you've changed, and it's a divorce, but obvious irreconcilable differences, and of course, Alberta. And again, we've come back and forth on this analogy of the divorce versus the birth of a new nation. We talked and discussed about it with Jason Levine and Paula about what the best messaging was. And I think both types of messaging work for different people. So I would say for younger people, the prospect of being able to make history, be involved in making history, being in the history books, and the birth of a new nation, that is a good way to message to the youth and giving them a little bit of hope, at least, because nobody has any more hope in Canada. And for the older people, this might actually be more, might resonate a bit more, especially for those that might have already gone, maybe not exactly through this.
Well, I don't know. This might really pitch to the youth as well, because Canada has really become a transgender man.
Yeah, that transgender
woman, whatever the hell it is.
But yeah, and again, I do think it brings up a good conversation as to how to message to for different people. However, the for Canada, for Alberta, forever Canada, they're all kind of the same. But this is Nenshi for Alberta for Canada. It says, quote, from Slave Lake to Stavely. Albertans are making one thing clear. They've had enough of this separatist talk. If you're a proud Albertan, love our country, and want to fight against separatism, join us.
Well,
there's like 5 people.
And I just thought it was kind of funny because he's doing it in Slave Lake. And
that's what it's called.
Albertans feel like they're a bunch of slaves to the Canadian government right now. So go start your campaign over there in Nenshi.
But I think
it's no hit against Slave Lake. I'm just kind of saying I seen it and I was like, we're fighting against Canadian slavery.
Well, but I think a few people were telling us that there were some campaigns in Let's Talk Alberta with Chris Scott. I think they went over there not that long ago because I remember someone posted it in the comments. And lastly, JJ Nexer says, Canadians are not okay. No S. This guy in the truck just said what millions are feeling right now. I think we're all exhausted from having nothing. I'm not even there, and so am I. 2 bags of groceries are $72. A tank of gas is $60, and he filled up 2 days ago. No matter how hard you work, how early you get up, or how much you make, you still end up with nothing. Can't afford a house, can't afford food, can't afford to live.
Yeah, and this man seems like he is on the last straw before it broke the camel's back. And I think a lot of Albertans and a lot of Canadians are feeling this way. At least in Alberta, you're having some path towards freedom. In the rest of Canada, there's absolutely nothing. There's Pierre Poilievre at the end of their road in 3 years. Is that even going to make a difference? Is Canada even going to be standing in 3 years?
We can't keep doing this. Last night I went to the grocery store. 2 bags of groceries. $72. This morning I stopped and filled up my tank. $60. I just put gas in it 2 days ago. I do drive a little bit to work, but no matter what you do, you got nothing. No matter how hard you work, no matter how early you go in, no matter how much you make, you got nothing. At the end of the week, you got nothing. Can't afford a house. Can't afford food. Can't afford utilities. Every time you go to the store, a bag of chips is like $6 or $7. A loaf of bread, $5. Gallon of milk, $5. The only thing that's fucking cheap is a dozen eggs. I've been thinking about living off eggs. Have an egg for breakfast, have a hard-boiled egg for lunch, and have a fucking omelet with no cheese for dinner. It seems like everybody in the world has nothing. But why are the people in government so rich? I heard a theory the other day, and he said that, what if everybody in government made minimum wage for a year? Would things change? I don't know. They'd probably fucking suffer for a year, but then they'd probably get right back to being the same way they were before. Nobody's got nothing. Elderly got nothing. You see old people at the gas station trying to buy gas. And you can see it in their eyes. They got nothing. Young kids just out of college. They got nothing. You can't afford a house. Everybody's got nothing. And it's not fucking cool anymore. It's never been cool, but everyone's at the end of the rope. I'm at the end of my rope. I don't know what to do. No matter what you do, no matter how much you make, it's not enough. You still got fucking nothing.
Yeah, and I think that sentiment hit it right on the head for a lot of people, not just in Alberta, but throughout all of Canada. And that's just your working class average Joe there. And I think he speaks to the people a lot better than these politicians ever have or ever will.
And the worst part is, I mean, we left now almost 2 years ago, and it felt that way back then when we were there, and it's just gotten progressively worse. And I think he and anybody that is feeling this way is the perfect example of which way Western men, that typical meme of like, there's a fork on the road, and there's Alberta independence and getting away from Canada and the system that you already know, the only system that you've been able to live under, or continue to live under that system. And unfortunately, sadly, once again, I mean, we have the MAID program as the solution, but also auto-made, I guess, would be another one. Like, people are getting to that point where it's that desperate, and it's incredibly sad that they're not seeing, or not being shown that there are other examples, and not just with Alberta independence, but around the world, where people don't have to live like this.
Yeah.
And they've become so accustomed, not him, but like other people have become so accustomed to just think and inside the Canadian bubble, and looking inside the Canadian bubble and saying, well, it must be terrible everywhere else. They're telling me it's horrible in the US. They're telling me it's horrible elsewhere in the world. And yes, in Europe, they're not doing well, but other places, people are able to afford and live pretty comfortable, decent lives that Canadians cannot even fathom anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so frustrating.
Well, when we lived in Canada, it was like, which bill's going to break us this month? I mean, we were trying to save to get out of the country.
Now we can't get milk today.
Worked four jobs. And then, I mean, you have your rent bill that comes in that's thousands upon thousands of dollars every month. You can't find cheap rent in a city. And then groceries, you can only buy groceries week to week. You can't afford to buy a month. And then when it comes to a cell phone bill, it's well over $100 sometimes. And it's like a bill of $100 coming in at the wrong time can absolutely break you.
Which happened a few times. And again, it's still insane that I'm thinking back then it was that bad. And now it's just gotten progressively worse. Again, there's a technical recession going on.
Yeah.
And now looking at it from outside, I kind of do want to shake people and say, yes, you feel frustrated, but you don't have like other places, other people living elsewhere. There's frustrations and it's not perfect, but it's not as bad as having to, again, decide if you're going to buy milk or eggs this week.
Well, why do cell phones cost so much in Canada compared to other countries? Because of the monopolies they built, because of the tariffs they put on the United States, because of the companies they kept out of Canada. People's bills could be cheap. Why is food so expensive? Because of the cartels they've built, the monopolies they built with the dairy cartel or whatever other food mechanism they want control over, or the massive amounts of regulations. You don't see those prices here in Mexico, period.
And also because because we decided to leave, we had to save up for 4 years and work a lot. I mean, but I still think I wasted so much time and money having to continue to live in Canada for that long that nowadays, that even today, I can't even imagine how much more I would have had if that wasn't the circumstance we were under. If we were saving up here, for example, or elsewhere in the US, like how much more we could have saved up, et cetera, et cetera. But now let's go to your comments. Sorry, I get riled up. Todd says, yeah, he's an ex-professional goalie. Who? Oh, I'm guessing they're talking to each other. Todd says, hold on. Todd is talking to someone else there. Todd says, I'm saving up to buy summer tires so I don't wreck my winters. LOL, still paying for the last repair on it.
Oh, God.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Todd says, cars parked till I can round up summer tires and rims. Definitely can't afford tires right now.
Well, in Alberta, you actually need winter tires. In Vancouver, I just use all year round tires.
Yeah. I remember we made a mistake because I had a car and I made a mistake one time with my car. I think I had either not changed the winter ones for the summer or vice versa. I don't remember what I did. But, they told me off in the tire place in Costco. Troglodyte says he's an ex-goalie. Metis, I think. Who though?
I just keep going.
Hold on. Troglodyte says the temporary foreign worker scam is so enraging. On top of that, exactly.
It represses wages massively, and you have to figure. Danielle Smith had already said in the past she wanted to go to 5 million to 10 million. How do you do that? You do it through mass immigration. And she's signing these MOUs to get more natural resource projects. Who does she think is going to be working this? She's going to try to give a wage break to the corporations through mass immigration. How do we know this? Because this happened in the States for literally decades.
Troglodyte says, after the Henry Novak unaliving, there is a huge shift in the Overton window happening in real time. I really hope so.
And we're going to talk about that when we get to RUMBLE. We have some pretty good footage of it. Not good footage of what happened, but what's happening as a result of it. And I'm actually on the side of the people with this one. I know Keir Starmer wants to say no violence, this and that. Well,
Saltius Maximus says, and I don't really understand it, but says 1 million Amelias from Sky Browse as well. Okay. James B says, spend more and worry less. How has the ideology worked out so far?
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I think it's working out perfectly for Carney. He's wanting to crumble Canada and rebuild it in this idea of communism and really the Chinese structure. And how is he going to pay for that? Because he's going to need money. It's going to be Canada's natural resources.
Todd says about that meme with the divorce reflects Crapita perfectly, the true dopers in a red dress. Free Alberta from Kami says, people got to network and organize. I don't know how, but it feels needed. Grand scale collaboration. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's the people that need to, and I really think this is why I think the Alberta independence movement is absolutely crucial, especially to a place like Quebec. You need the people to organize and the people to raise their voices. Yes, in Quebec, they have the PQ, but they rely much too heavily on the PQ. If the grassroots movement and the voices of the people can really take control of that movement, they can direct the PQ where to go, what to do, what bills to pass, rather than the other way around. And I think that's really hindered Quebec in the past.
Mm-hmm. And Culture Casino, hello, how are you?
Oh,
and by the way, Culture Casino's interview is out. It premiered yesterday. It was great. I rewatched it all again. I was in the chat with Culture Casino. He was there too, so thank you for being there. But he says, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm guessing for the circumstance in Canada, I hope.
Yeah. I mean, Americans just look at Canada and it's a dumpster fire. And they know people don't want to be the 51st state up there. But for the rest of Canada, I think the 51st state is going to be the best option for the rest of Canada at a certain point. Now, Alberta has a good enough economy where it can stand up on its own and it can stand on its own 2 feet. So I do want to see independence. But Mark Carney keeps driving in the same direction. He's going to be lucky to be the 51st state and have some kind of bailout program for Canada.
But if you haven't watched the Culture Casino interview, please go watch it. Again, he is from the US. He is currently living in Arizona. Eventually will move to Tennessee and has very interesting ideas about the necessity of free speech, but also how culture has been stripped away. And again, I'm on a panel with him every other Thursday, tomorrow, by the way, on WDW Pro, talking about culture, entertainment, etc.
Well, and he also has a gardening channel. And I know some of our viewers are gardeners because they put it in the comments.
Yeah. So
what's the name of the channel?
That Garden Place.
Yeah.
So go follow that one as well, please. And Culture Casino says we look at Canada with pity.
Yeah, the whole world does.
How do you feel, Canada? Do we really want to stay in a place where everybody's looking at you? Even Mexicans now are looking at you with pity, and that is saying something. Mm-hmm. And Todd says, Sling in the Biscuit podcast is an ex-pro goalie from Winnipeg. There we go.
There we go. Now it's making sense. Okay, let's go into Alberta politics if we can.
Yeah, let's go into Alberta politics.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
And starting with Keith Wilson saying, quote, Alberta's treasurer Jason Nixon says he doesn't know how Alberta would sell off its oil if Alberta were a new country. The answer seems obvious, the same way we sell it now. Private producers, contracts, pipelines, ports, and global buyers. Only it would be easier, more profitable, and more beneficial to Albertans without Bill C-69 holding our industry back, or carbon taxes and net zero pathways nonsense wasting our taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, I would go actually a step further than that. It's not just the way that we sell it now. There's a market for everything Alberta has, whether it's natural resources with the Rocky Mountains or oil and natural gas. The thing is, right now, the federal government has handicapped Alberta, and Danielle Smith has played right along with it, building pipelines through other provinces before they go to the United States, so Alberta doesn't have total control or sovereignty over its own oil. A lot of those pipelines that go right down by the border cut over to Saskatchewan, we'll just cut those pipelines off and then redirect them directly to the United States, so we don't have to negotiate with Canada, Saskatchewan, or any other province anymore. We'll just take existing pipelines, turn them off temporarily while we reroute the oil to a new pipeline that we're going to build going directly to our number one customer and trading partner, which is the United States.
And this is because the Calgary Herald says, quote, Danielle Smith said to name experts to nail down cost of Alberta separatism, maybe because she said it completely wrong the other day.
Yeah, and it's starting to come out.
Bring in Keith Wilson.
Well, people have pushed back against her $400 billion framework if that's what it's going to cost to separate from Canada. Number one, if that's the price of freedom, then that's the price of freedom. But obviously it's not, because people pushed her on it. And she goes, oh, she's going to have a paper coming out in a few months. You don't throw the number out there without the research and then try to figure out how to make the numbers happen. Obviously, she wanted a talking point to make a headline. It did make a headline, but there's a lot of pushback on what she said there, because other research projects have been done for how much it would cost Scotland to get independence, or even Quebec. There was a huge research project done on that, and it's nowhere near even the $100 billion mark. It's much less than that.
And again, she probably also knows that Keith Wilson and his group, what's it called? His group, white paper group, are already working on that.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember the name. J. Gen Xer also says, quote, even in Toronto, people are calling out Carney's Dodd Street interviews after the Prime Minister refused to answer if Canada is in a recession. Well, it's technical.
People are starting to wake up, and you can tell that these are probably most likely Carney voters. They're probably not Carney voters anymore, but he's secured a majority government for the next 3 years. You're going to see the collapse and the communification.
The path towards communism.
The path towards communism of Canada over the next 3 years.
That was absolutely horrifically dismissive, not only to the individual woman reporter, but to those of us looking at the camera.
Prime Minister, can you comment on the claims about a recession?
I think
and the economy?
Does he not know that we're going to see this and we're going to judge him accordingly? And to be quite honest, his behavior in the last year has changed my vote.
This video? Yeah. I have no idea if he was purposely ignorant or not, but I don't know what his intentions were behind that video at all.
Do you feel like that's him avoiding the question? I think so, a little bit, unless he had somewhere to go, but definitely didn't look too good. Flip is coming after data came out saying that Canada's in a technical recession.
Yeah, I love the technical. Thomas Mulclair had said he loved the way they crab walked that in sideways, and I got to agree with that. In fact, out of 4 quarters, we've only had one with even a hintismal of growth. So we've been in a recession for a lot longer than just these last 2 quarters. And for those of us who live in the real world, we've been in a recession for many years.
And I don't know about other Canadians, man. This just infuriates me, and it infuriated me to such a degree we had to leave the country. I couldn't deal with it anymore. It was not good for my mental health or anything else.
No, and again, even from over here, it still infuriates me. And again, it still infuriates me that we even had to go through that.
It infuriated me so much that I decided to leave the country and still fight against the Canadian federal government. And they continue to do the same thing, driving Canada off a cliff, putting its elites and its politicians above its people. It's the people that make society work, not the economists.
And doing so with lies and continuing to push a system that clearly doesn't work and has never worked, which is socialism. And eventually, as they run out of money, they just continue to have to lie.
Yeah.
So it's just a perpetual idiocy machine. Lastly, Kirk Lupimov says, quote, Liberals Bill C9 combating hate gets an addition to it. And everyone who, by communicating statements other than in private conversation, willfully promotes hatred against Indigenous peoples by condoning, denying, or downplaying the Indian residential school system is A, guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years, or B, guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction.
And this is absolutely insane. I didn't realize this was added last year to this Bill C9. Now, Bill C9 hasn't passed yet, but It's already passed the House and it's waiting to go through the Senate. So it looks like it is going to pass, especially with a majority government. The big problem with this, the residential school thing is a complete hoax. It's been shown to be a hoax through multiple documentaries, through multiple investigations, yet the First Nations is still collecting billions of dollars. Now they want to arrest people who claim that this thing is an actual hoax, which it is.
In your opinion, allegedly.
You might as well arrest me now because it's not allegedly anymore for me. You might as well arrest me now because free speech is dead in Canada.
That's the thing. We do have to go up to Alberta. So allegedly, in our opinion.
Everyone who, by communicating statements other than in private conversation, willfully promotes hatred against Indigenous peoples by condoning, denying, or downplaying the Indian residential school system. A is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years.
A 2-year sentence if you deny the residential school hoax. Absolutely crazy. The next step literally after this is going to be if you don't do a land acknowledgement, you're going to be arrested. It's going to be compelled speech laws coming in shortly after this. It's a short step away from what they're trying to offer here.
In your opinion, allegedly.
Or B is guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction.
Okay, and we can.
And again, it's insane that now I'm even thinking like, what would happen if we get to the airport and this thing has passed and they haven't amended this? What would happen to us? I mean, we've spoken about this for years now on the channel.
A lot of people have spoken about it for years, and that's the issue. A lot of people have done in-depth documentaries and research papers about this.
And still, allegedly, in my opinion, there's no evidence.
Well, and then they're trying to do hit jobs on CBC and things like that for the main outspoken individuals for this. They're trying to do those hit pieces before this law gets in because they know once this law gets in, those people aren't going to shut up about it.
Well, they completely tricked them as well.
Yeah.
But now we'll go to your comments and then into Alberta Personalities. Teresa Freedom, hello, says, hi, y'all, just getting in here. Have an AC repair going on. Thankfully, is covered under warranty. Well, that's good. I'm guessing it's going to be necessary as we get closer to actual summer. Teresa also says, Todd says, we sell it the same way we always have. Drill, baby, drill. We can do anything, build anything, truck anything. It's called a track. Oxy, Ethylene, Torch, and welder Jason Nixon.
Well, you have a trading partner to your south. You already do 70% of your trade with that's ready to play ball, who's already approved multiple pipelines. It's Mark Carney that's holding everything up here.
Teresa Freedom asks, Guy, why are all Alberta ministers coming out with all this misinformation and disinformation?
Because they want to have a unified front against all independence movements. They want to put a stop to not only Alberta, but Quebec, Saskatchewan, British Columbia. I mean, independence movements are popping up all across Canada right now.
Talk says, how do you get Nat and Guy? Hello, and thank you for being here. Yvette Devo, hello. Welcome back, says, hi guys. Hope your day goes well. I too am saving for summer tires. And it's insane. It shouldn't have to be something you save up for and it's this huge expense.
Yeah.
But it is. And that's just mobility. So you're able to move around.
Well, and it's summer tires are one thing, but the insurance on a car in Canada is absolutely backbreaking to the wallet.
Mm-hmm. Mike Freedom, honey, hello. Thank you for being here. Says Mitch will be on the show tonight to announce the plan going forward. So on the Unacceptable Fringe, Mitch Sylvester will be on.
Yeah, and I meant to tell you about that because I was watching the Fringe's video this morning and he was saying Mitch Sylvester is going to be on there. And I was kind of waiting for that to happen because he said it was happening. So it's happening tonight. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Our show usually runs right into the Fringe. We make sure we end the show before his starts.
Yes. But hello, Mike. Thank you for being here. Also, go watch Mike's interview if you haven't seen it because a lot of backstory is revealed and it's very interesting. William Robel, hello, says, my apologies. I'm so late today. That's okay. And says, reminder, destroy the like button. Yes, thank you so much. We're always trying to get to 100 likes per stream, so it really does help out. Cocha Casino says it's telling that Trump is leaving Canada out of the North American free trade talks with Mexico. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And has been trying to for a while now.
Well, because we cover Canadian news a lot, especially when it comes to the USMCA. And I think in the Alberta The World, as well as the Alberta and Canada sections today, that's what a lot of the news is. And the Canadian media is trying to do absolute hoops around itself and the words that they're using to try to pin this as a good thing. It's not a good thing. The Canadian economy is in a recession. They're not going to be able to cover this thing up for much longer, especially when Mexico gets the deal and Canada doesn't. And the thing about Canada, and I say it a lot, the U.S. only wants what Western Canada has. That's British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. Very often, Ottawa leverages Western Canada to make sure they can protect their manufacturing in the East. He's not going to be able to do it anymore, and you're going to see this thing start falling apart.
Saltius Maximus says, there is international laws on pipelines. They can't just end Alberta's pipelines through BC to punish Alberta.
Yeah.
And again, investments too that are already put in there.
Yeah, well, they're going to do they're doing all kinds of craziness when it comes to the environment within Canada. You already have a partner right to your south that is showing the path to success, and that's Donald Trump and the United States. Ideologically, Alberta's already aligned with them when it comes to a lot of their policies, even more so because Alberta has voted conservative for the last 93 years.
And James B says 400 billion is completely over-exaggerated.
Everybody knows that, and we're starting to, there's video after video, article after article, kind of debunking this entire thing. Danielle Smith has kind of had to walk it back, and she said she's going to show the work in a couple months. She has people working on the paper now. Working on the paper now? How did you come up with the numbers?
William Robel says Alberta Transition Council. That's the name of Keith Wilson's group. And William Robel also says, come on, guy, being married to Nat is both good and bad for your mental health. Good. It's just good.
Good and bad,
Shut
yes.
up. Shh. Don't tell him. Okay, now let's go into Alberta Personalities.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done. We're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
And today it's Kathy Flett saying, quote, much of what she says will be startup costs that already exist.
Oh, 1 second. This is going to go right into what we were just talking about, that $400 billion number, which was absolutely ridiculous, by Danielle Smith.
And Kathy Flett is fantastic. Again, we've also had the privilege of interviewing her. And I like how she brings a mix of what she's doing specifically with women and Alberta independence, but also with the history and what has been happening in Alberta for a very long time that most people don't even know. So Kathy Flett says much of what she says will be startup costs that already exist. We will just be taking it over ourselves. But let's play with the Premier's numbers for a minute. You are 30 years old. Currently, you pay on average $5,000 per year more for government services than you receive. That adds up to $175,000 in overpayment over your working years. You can also look forward to paying more income tax as you continue to do better for yourself and your family. Someone comes to you and says, hey, for a one-time investment of $80,000, you'll be a founding member of a new country that will enjoy a much lower tax burden, higher standard of living, and no more being ruled by elites thousands of kilometers away. A realized savings of $95,000, not to mention free from the mess that you are forced to support now. Not a bad deal. I would take it.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this. When you compare Alberta and the amount of natural resources they have far more natural resources than the other natural resource wealthy countries like Saudi Arabia, like Iran, like a lot of these countries, like Dubai. All these countries have no taxes. And we have a very low amount of citizens compared to these other countries too. There's no reason why citizens are going to have to pay taxes in a new Alberta. It's going to be corporations and natural resources that are going to pay for Alberta infrastructure and things like this. So I wouldn't even go into these figures here. What I would say is there is going to be no taxes in a new Alberta, period. And if they can't get that right, then corruption is being built into that system as well.
But once again, I will say it's sad that these fear-mongering tactics and techniques of saying, oh, you can't have a system that has no taxes, or you're going to have to spend about $400 billion in a new country. It's sad that they work because citizens and people are just not well informed and not even wanting to reach out and look at the actual factual information, but just believe what they're being told by politicians. And that is why the system continues to perpetuate, and why the task and the labor of educating and getting citizens to the point where they want to be educated and learn more for themselves about their own circumstances is also I think, imperative as we move forward.
You've been tricked into we have to pay taxes. This is ridiculous. The United States was founded. There was no taxes. It was the World War that brought it in. It was supposed to be on the 1%. And we've seen what happened to that. It was expanded. Trump is proposing a new way to get rid of taxes, and that was tariffs. Now, whether it's going to work or whether it's not, I don't know. But Ron DeSantis as well is saying no property taxes in Florida, which is an absolutely fantastic idea. What are we, serfs? After you spend a lifetime trying to buy a house, you have to pay a stipend to the government to just keep that house? Absolutely ridiculous. Now, I understand a lot of places in the world don't have the ability to have no taxes because they can't raise money for infrastructure. Alberta is not one of those places. It's extremely wealthy in natural resource development as well as businesses.
But you know what also is even sadder? That politicians like Danielle Smith and Mark Carney and the Forever Canadian people and Nenshi think that you're dumb enough to believe their lies and that you're dumb enough to believe that what they're telling you is correct, that you won't look into the numbers. They have you pinned as somebody that just won't look it up so they can easily manipulate you and control you.
Yeah.
And if we can get more people to see that, how they're being treated by their own politicians who are supposed to be representing them, I think maybe we can sway more people towards our side. Do you want to go to comments or Alberta's Canada?
Let's go to some comments and then we'll go to Alberta's Canada.
Okay. Teresa Freedom says, even if they leave, we have many others that would love to have their jobs. I'm guessing the politicians. Teresa says, Smith is spending our money to do the study. Also that she gave up and with that number and will now have the study to make it work for her amount.
Yeah.
And to fix the numbers so they fit what she had said initially.
The people are having to pay for this referendum against themselves, which is ridiculous. The federal government is taking remittance payments and then using billions of dollars. I'm sure this is going to total into either 100 millions or billions of dollars going against Alberta independence. Simply put it on the ballot and put it to a vote and see what the people think, period.
Todd says Danielle is just going to start straight up lying. It's just going to continue, I would say. Teresa Freedom says, Smith is spending our money to do this stuff. Yeah, they read that one. Todd says, yeah, there is a carbon tax here. Our grocery store prices are way up because of the carbon tax. Remember, the trucks that ship our groceries have to pay it, and therefore it trickles down to the consumer. Yeah. And it's something that they never want to talk about either. Todd says, everything is way too expensive because of the carbon tax, you idiot, but also because of the way everything else is handled currently.
Well, you have a 1-to-1 comparison. Just look what Trump's doing in the United States. There's no carbon taxes there. It's drill, baby, drill. And the United States GDP is growing faster than China for the first time in decades.
James B says, we have these people in place already. People right now are guarding the border and they're making passports and they are helping the sick. Do these people really think that if Alberta leaves, the people themselves will leave?
It costs very little to take over or rebuild what we need for a free Alberta. The thing that actually costs is buying the buildings, buying the property and things like that. But a lot of that is already owned by Alberta as well. Some of it's not, and it's going to cost a lot of money because property costs a lot of money in Canada.
And on the Bill C9 ridiculousness that we showed, William Robel says, I'm American and Canadian speech laws don't apply to me. Exactly. I'm Mexican, so hopefully not to me either. Charlotte says, when speaking the truth is a revolutionary act. Exactly. William Robel says, Canada has no jurisdiction over me. Not me yet either. And Culture Casino says, you just demonstrated compelled speech. Again, rather be safe than sorry, but it doesn't mean I'm going to stop saying it. I'm just going to say, in my opinion, allegedly.
Well, John Bolton made a video this morning. That's John R. Bolton from Alberta. He gave a George Washington quote, and what was it? It was something like, once freedom dies, man, I can't remember. I'll get it for tomorrow's show, but it was absolutely fantastic.
I know which one you mean. I know I can't remember it either. Culture Casino says Canadian citizenship is a liability now. Now, it's been for a long time.
Well, and we've seen that, and we talked about it on yesterday's show about Thailand starting to put restrictions on Canadian citizens because they're going over there, they're not paying their bills, they're pooping on the beach. And then the guy said, like, that doesn't sound like Canadians. It's because of the amount of Indian immigrants that are coming into Canada. Those same stories are happening in Canada, but now they're spreading a reputation around the world, which is affecting Canada and the strength of the Canadian passport. The only way out of this thing is Alberta independence.
So whenever they try to bring up the passport thing, also ask them, well, is it even worth it right now to be seen as a Canadian? Not so much. And the passport is losing its prestige around the world. pretty quickly, because as what, again, Canada is allowing more and more people in with less and less background checks and less restrictions, which means that more people can get in and then use that passport to go elsewhere. So other countries, I mean, I'm guessing especially the US, but also Mexico and the Shield of the Americas, so all of most of Latin and South America, might start looking at Canada and saying, well, this is a security risk also because of their dealings with China, so we want to restrict their passport even further.
Yeah, but you know how Canada is going to pitch that? They're going to pitch it as, I don't even know how many countries are in the EU, 28. And go, oh, we have direct access to the EU. We have special privileges from Canada to the EU, which is
They
ridiculous.
just started that ridiculous new visa with India.
Yeah.
And they were touting it like, oh, go vacation in India. You can just go to Toronto or Vancouver and you're basically in India already. Okay, let's go to...
Alberta. Alberta's Canada.
Yes, let's go into Alberta's Canada.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And starting with from Ryan Gertison saying, quote, Carney gets asked his thoughts about Trump once again, saying 51st state. His answer tells me that he's realized that his constant rhetoric against the largest economy in the world is backfiring.
Look at the face he's got there. And that just says the state of Canada right now. And he was so scared to bring up this 51st state, and he was trying to avoid it with all costs. Trump hasn't been to over a barrel, and he doesn't know what to do but give this face.
And with the economy in the tank, we need as good a deal as we can get with the US, or Canada is done. Canada is done.
The US president is once again making his 51st state jab, and the US ambassador to Canada reshared it. Is this an ambassador that Canada can work with, or is it time to ask him to leave?
Look, the short answer is no to the second part of your question. And it's an administration that we have to work with. It's our biggest trading relationship. It's our biggest security relationship, many other relationships. And we work with that administration. We take the administration as it is and are working together on a number of areas. And I'll just underscore, and I know there are other questions, I'll just underscore that Minister LeBlanc and Madame Charette, une autre Madame Charette, our negotiator-in-chief, not negotiatrice en chef, they were in Washington today working with the U.S. administration discussing our trading relationship.
Just to follow up on that, does the 51st state jab at this point impact those trade negotiations happening in Washington?
The president is an exceptionally active user of social media. You probably can chart his usage of it. It's only gone up in recent months, and we're not going to respond or react to everything that he posts. Thank you.
Question.
What happened to we're never going to be the 51st state? That was always his line, and no more. And he says, this is an administration we have to work with. When he talks about China, it's all peaches and roses, or how he wants to work with China, how we're building a diverse economy. When it comes to the U.S., even when he talks good about them, there's a slight there. And him inviting George Soros' son along with Barack Obama up to Canada and having secret meetings is absolutely ridiculous. That's a big FU to Trump and the full administration that's in there right now.
But also seeing Roberts in there, I mean, coming from Vancouver, that man infuriates me. Man, I will say. But
that's the gentleman was standing behind
housing,
Mark Carney.
The one that's now in charge of housing that doesn't know how to build a house.
He used to come into my bar all the time. He was an absolute stooge.
But I will say, again, now the worry might not actually be that Alberta will become the 51st state. It's the rest of Canada that will probably become the 51st state. And what Trump and then again everybody else has been talking about it again to infuriate Mark Carney is actually means. But they don't want you to think that. They continue to go down with they mean it's Alberta. No, they mean it's the rest of Canada that can manage itself and now is the worst performing in the not just G7, but other countries as well.
Well, I don't think Canada would even be capable of becoming the 51st state. They would at best be a territory at this point. I'm sorry, Mark's put them into the off the absolute deep end. Now, Alberta, on the other hand, has a great economy, has a great ideology, and would be a great trading partner for the United States. And eventually, hypothetically, if a Democrat got in like Gavin Newsom, which God forbid nobody wants to see, but if that happened, Alberta might be the refuge for a lot of Americans to kind of wait him out on.
True. And, okay, sorry, I was trying to go to this one. Scott Robertson says, quote, Scott Reed on Trump easing some 232 tariffs, saying the move to lower these tariffs is a clear concession, a clear admission. Yeah, right.
Well, and now I actually looked into this, and this is absolutely ridiculous. They're jumping over hoops. Trump is going to take what he wants from the Canadian economy now and absolutely hollow it out. A lot of these dropping of tariffs came with concessions, meaning 85% of it has to be made with American steel or it has to be manufactured in the United States. A lot of things that favored the U.S. And he's saying, I want this, this, and this. And all those things come from Western Canada is the thing here. But the way they want to pitch it on Canadian media is completely different.
Of course, as they always do.
Today's move on steel tariffs is probably that clearest indication.
An admission, correct, that tariffs were punishing.
I think it is. The move to lower these tariffs is a clear concession, a clear admission on the part of the President of the United States that he is under withering domestic political pressure, that he needed to do this because...
And this is actually completely opposite. There were so many concessions Canada had to give just to get this. The majority of the manufacturing is being made in the United States now. This benefits the United States massively and Canada very, very little. And what I will say is Mark Carney's getting exactly what he asked for. He wants to do tit for tat negotiations here. And Trump's going to say, okay, I want tit, tit, tit. I'll leave the rest out of it. And that's going to hollow out the Canadian economy.
Mark Carney is a tit.
It will save jobs and lower prices in the United States. And that has always been the Canadian and Mexican argument, that this free trade agreement between our three nations is of mutual benefit. Trump has always rejected that premise, but political realities are closing in on him and forcing his hand. Today's move...
And the thing is, it benefits the American economy massively to just have a single trade deal with Mexico, because most of what's done in Canada, Trump wants to move to the United States. He's already cleared out the manufacturing economy of Europe. He's going to do the same to Canada. The only reason Canada even has a manufacturing economy is because they leverage the natural resources of Western Canada in order to get deals for the manufacturing in Eastern Canada. That's not going to happen now.
And lastly, from Mark Nixon says, quote, check this out, CBC says we should stop arguing if we're in a recession right now or not. People across the nation are hurting regardless what we are in. Interesting. I thought affordability is the best it's been in over a decade, and we should be judging him on grocery prices. When are we going to start judging him on that?
That 51st state post by the U.S. president is a reference to Canada's GDP data issued last Friday. The figure showed Canada's economy shrinking for 2 straight quarters, the definition of a technical recession. But just how bad a shape is the economy in? Let's bring in the CBC senior business reporter, Peter Armstrong. He joins me in the studio. So, Peter, you know, we were talking in our meetings, we hear the
And
rhetoric.
the problem with this is only the beginning. They've fudged the numbers for so long. It's becoming very apparent now. And Mark Carney had already hired massive amounts of government workers. A lot of the tricks he would do to get Canada out of the recession, on the books at least, he can't do because he's already pulled those tricks out of his hat. So this is the beginning of a long, long recession for Canada.
We hear both Mark Carney, we hear Pierre Poilievre, we hear the political rhetoric about whether or not this country is in rough shape. What we want to know is it? What is the state of Canada's economy right now? Are we going through a rough patch?
I mean, yes, a million percent. And what's frustrating in this, Andrew, is that if you zoom out and sort of remove yourself from the politics that surround Parliament Hill, they're both right. Canada's economy is weak. It has been weak. It is weak now. It is forecasted to be weak for the rest of this year. Where it's weak, it has been an incredibly tough year, right? And we hear that from people. The people that feel like they're going through a recession, they feel that because it's how it feels where they are. I'm not taking anything away from that. Where the economy is weak, it's been awful and it's been really hard. Now, will this meet?
And every other G7 economy had to deal with Trump as well. Most of them made deals, and none of them are in a recession except for Canada.
The technical definition of a recession, the actual standard of a recession? Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. We have to take in all of the data and get a sense of it. This idea of a technical recession is really this made-up term for people that want to say something about the economy now while we wait to get the actual data. In Canada, the CD Howe has this thing called the Business Cycle Council that really measures the broad stretch of what's actually happening with the economy. Is this a significant and sustained downturn in the Canadian economy? Does it spread out across a bunch of different indicators like jobs and business investment? And oftentimes what it does is it takes the GDP data that we got, say, on Friday, and it waits 6, 8, 10 months to see, did that get revised a little bit? Because the difference between 0.01 growth and 0.01 contraction, frankly, doesn't matter much to the people that are in the thick of it. But if we're actually trying to say what's happening with the Canadian economy, it does matter. So they wait and see how big and how broad.
And the problem is the USMCA is just now going to finish up, and it's not going to necessarily finish up what I actually think is going to happen to it. It's going to go to a year-over-year review, which gives absolutely no confidence for Canadian businesses. So they're going to hollow out and move to the United States because they need security and they need to know what's happening for the next 10 years for their projections.
But literally, all I'm hearing him say right now is we need more time. We're going to wait more time so we can try to continue to fudge the numbers. So we can't really say at this moment. And some people might not be suffering while others are.
Well, Canada also deserves a year-over-year review because of the way they've treated the relationship with the United States, and they've favored China. They've talked down about the United States on a global scale. So of course you're going to want to review the USMCA year after year, and of course that's going to give inconfidence. But Canada is not a very confident trading partner, meaning they want to have multiple trading partners. They want to play China off of the United States.
Is it getting revised as we get more data coming in? But that takes time. And we are not a notoriously patient people for these kind of things. So we want to get an answer right now. So we came up with this technical definition of a recession. Is it 2 back-to-back quarters? Economists hate it. And they hate it because it's super pedantic. And at the end of the day, of all the things we need to be debating about the Canadian economy, and it's very clear weakness. It is in a weak spot. There is no question about that. The last thing that would be helpful to the people that are going through this is a debate over the pedantic nature of is this or is this not meeting the technical definition of recession.
I wonder if we would be in a recession if it had not been for a trade war.
Yeah, and you can kind of leave it there. My belief is Carney wants to collapse the economy, put a lot of things in place so private investment won't come into Canada, so we can make a hard turn towards communism, have the federal government be the main investor for natural resource projects when that time comes. And I think that's the long-term plan of Mark Carney. And he's currently building the mechanisms to do that through the 30 by 30 program, through the Sovereign Wealth Fund, through the different MOUs he's making with different provinces right now.
Now let's go into your comments, and then lastly into Alberta and the world before we go over to RUMBLE with you. Todd says, oh, okay, yeah, there will be no carbon tax here as it is a scam to break crapidus citizens. Yeah. Todd says, intentional decline with scams and tomfoolery with forever communists fall for every time because they are so stupid and lazy and apathetic. True. And because they don't want to look into it either. They become accustomed to being told what their situation and their circumstances are instead of just looking outside.
Well, and the fact that Albertans have a real chance for freedom here, that we need to take it. That's why we're fighting so hard for it, because what you really need to ask yourself, everybody can see this is a controlled collapse of not only the Canadian economy, but the European economy and other countries. But why are they doing that? They want to build a new system, and that new system is communism. You can already see them building the infrastructure and the different policies to align more and more with Chinese policies, whether that's the DRIPA laws, so we go into 99-year leases instead of ownership. That's the exact model China already has.
Michael Drader, hello, says only reason to visit India is to pay homage to St. Teresa of Calcutta.
Or poop on the beach.
But I was looking at a documentary about Teresa of Calcutta. Interesting, I will say. Todd says, I can't wait for President Trump to Maduro this goofball. No, he won't do it. He'll just let Canada fall and then try to come back and take advantage of that as well. Teresa Freedom says, I hope Trump shuts down the Canadian dairy cartels.
The more Trump tightens the screws into Carney in Canada, the more it helps Alberta independence. So I'm all for Trump not signing or renewing the USMCA. But ultimately, I think he's just going to put a year after year review. That way it doesn't hurt the United States economically, but it still hurts Canada.
Mm-hmm. Hold on. Satius Maximus says, oh, come on. There we go. Says Alberta could enter an economic agreement with the U.S. to fall under the existing U.S. trade umbrella.
And this is what I was talking about. I was thinking Danielle Smith and Trump would make a deal sidestepping the Canadian federal government. But Danielle Smith seems to be getting too close to Mark Carney now to kind of do that risky play.
Well, it's a lot more convenient for her if she is making that even broader play to
take Pierre's position.
Either take over or even take Mark's position eventually. William Babella says Alberta has about the same population as Kuwait, but has 60% more, I'm guessing, oil and natural resources.
Oil, yeah, but also mining minerals and things like that. The Rocky Mountains run right through there. It's not very well developed in Alberta because of the amount of regulations that are put on them, but they could develop that industry very easily.
Culture Casino says, it's not a jab. Please ask the ambassador to leave. Please. William Rebell.
Well, and it wasn't just Trump that made the 51st state comment. It was the trade ambassador from the United States said the 51st state comment as well. And Mark Carney's not saying anything about it.
William Rebell says, Carney isn't so stupid as to ask Pete Hoekstra to leave or to go further and expel him. That would not end well for Canada.
Yeah. Canada's in a real bad spot right now. He thought he would play hardball because he got elected with it. And then he thought he would run with it and play hardball with Trump. They're playing hardball with him, and Canada is losing big time here. And the thing is, a lot of people say, America needs a new trade deal. No, they don't. They can just go a year-over-year review. They're going to have all the same benefits they already have while they start hollowing out industries in Canada because there's no long-term commitment there, and businesses don't like that uncertainty. So it puts Canada at a huge disadvantage and leaves America in the exact same spot they're already in.
James B says the Karen glasses are all a person needs to see immediately and to realize this guy is a goofball. Yes. William Rebell says, as long as you're in Mexico, you will probably benefit from U.S. trade. Because the U.S. is purposefully trying to help Mexico out because it's more beneficial for the U.S. as well.
Well, and Mexico has a far left ideologue for our president, but man, she has really been willing to play ball. She's putting tariffs on China, pushing a lot of their manufacturing out, taking a lot of manufacturing from America in. With America's trade war with China, 1 out of every $4 that's coming back to America, they're investing in Mexican manufacturing. Not because America doesn't want manufacturing, but they don't want the low-grade manufacturing. They want the high-grade manufacturing in America, and the low-grade manufacturing they're bumping down to Mexico, which is having a huge economic benefit. The problem with Canada is Canada's trying to compete for that high-grade manufacturing as well, and it's not going to happen.
And Culture Casino says, do Canadians even realize that the CBC is government propaganda? A lot of them don't. But again, not that many people watch it because Chocolate says only about 3.5 to 5% of Canadians even watch the CBC.
Yeah, it's over $1 billion.
It's the ones that vote the most.
Over $1 billion a year the Canadian government gives to the CBC. And then they give another almost $1 billion to other media organizations, which is absolutely insane.
It's subsidized by the federal government. William Rebell says, Canada isn't a real country. It isn't taken seriously by anyone except themselves, and they take themselves so seriously that they can't see reality beyond their eyes or with their from their lying eyes, whatever the phrase.
Well, and again, Mark Carney took 3 flights and he spent $195,000 on food while Canadians are starving, going in lines for food banks, and the food banks are running out of food, meaning they're having to limit the amount of times you can come to the food bank in a month. You're only allowed to come once or twice now.
It's even more infuriating now, that speech that he gave at the WEF, where everybody, all the liberals were saying, not just in Canada, but all over the world, all the ones that want the new world order, saying how much great of a statesman he is in the great speech he gave. And it's even more infuriating now, seeing the state of Canada just a few months after everybody was calling him, he's the hope for the world that we wanted to build.
The United States, through USAID and other funding, really built up the global world order. And now Trump is trying to transition that to the Western Hemisphere. Canada could be included in that. This would be a huge boom for the entire Western Hemisphere. Canada is the one country that's really standing in the way. Even Mexico, who has a far left ideologue for the president, is getting in line because I think she sees the bigger benefits of the Western Hemisphere.
Well, and also because she doesn't want stuff to come out about her and her party. But let's go into Alberta and the world, speaking of other countries.
And last section before we go over to RUMBLE.
Yes, starting with speaking of CTV, says, quote, U.S. says it plans extra tariffs of 10% or more for most trading partners after forced labor probe.
And the Canadian media is trying to pitch that as this doesn't affect Canada. No, it does affect it. I looked in depth into this. So it's not going to affect anything that's under the umbrella of the USMCA, but anything outside of that could be affected by this. So this will have an impact on Canada, most definitely, especially because they have major trade relations with China. And that's what this is meant to actually go after, is Chinese manufacturing. And countries like Mexico are already going after Chinese manufacturing willingly because they want to have a good relationship with the U.S. Canada, on the other hand, is making trips to China and having their trade ambassadors come over so they can have more trade with China. This is going to infuriate the trade relationship with the U.S.
And yeah, Mexico was being essentially infiltrated and allowed to be infiltrated by China and Chinese manufacturing and Chinese everything, EVs, cars, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as Trump came in, the 70% tariffs came on the Chinese EVs that now we're full of, because for the past who knows how many years, they had been just allowed to come in and be super cheap compared to other cars, even cars made in Mexico. But yeah, I mean, ever since Trump came in last year, they've had to bring in tariffs and actually do something about it, and now have some of the most restrictive ones on China. Okay, moving on. Mackenzie Gray says, quote, Dominic LeBlanc was coy about what proposals he gave to his American counterpart during a nearly 2-hour meeting in D.C., a step forward in trade talks that still haven't formally started. Not a concern for Canada chief negotiator, who says Mexico won't undercut any of the Canadian advantages in their talks with the U.S.
And again, this is coming from Canadian media, so I'm going to debunk a lot of the things that they say here. A lot of the things they say are either half-truths or misrepresentations. And that's all. Every time the USMCA comes up, it's completely misrepresented by the Canadian media. And this is like, Canada's in an actual recession and it's starting to fall off of that cliff. The Canadian people need to be made aware of these things, but they're not, because the Canadian media just won't tell the truth.
Free trade negotiations entering a new phase.
The goals of this meeting is to be able to tell you how well it's gone when we finish.
A KG Canada-U.S. trade minister equally as coy after sitting down with Donald Trump's trade representative Jamieson Greer for nearly 2 hours in Washington.
We presented a number of specific proposals to Ambassador Greer that we think are good in the broader context of the North American economy.
LeBlanc unwilling to give specifics on the proposals, but said they address...
And that's the Canadian side of it. The American side of this meeting, after this happened, Donald Trump came out with the 51st statement. So did his trade ambassador as well. So that just shows you how good these trade talks are going. And these aren't even actual negotiations. These are informal talks and things like this. Mexico's actually in the formal process of finalizing their trade agreement. Canada hasn't even begun their actual talks here.
Long-standing U.S. grievances. The meeting, not viewed as formal talks, appearing to put Canada behind the Mexicans, who've already hosted American negotiators, a concern for the Conservatives.
The Mexicans have been in formal negotiations, eating our lunch for the last 6 months.
A worry dismissed by Canada's chief negotiator.
We're working very hard with our Mexican counterparts to make sure that, in their conversations, there's nothing that's going to happen in their bilateral agreement that undercuts any of the Canadian advantages.
Canada and Mexico also aligned on wanting to extend the free trade deal for 16 years.
Yeah, of course Canada and Mexico want to extend the deal for 16 years because they've been using the United States just like Europe and a lot of other countries. That's not going to happen anymore. What Mexico realizes is, yeah, they want to go ahead with a 16-year deal. That's probably not going to happen. So they're going to be happy with 5 or 10 years or whatever they can get, and they're going to deal directly with the United States, because every time they go into trilateral negotiations, Canada tries to undercut them or do shady things behind closed doors.
Literally every time they've gone into negotiations, Canada has said, "Oh, let's take Mexico out," and Mexico's been like, "No, let's bring Canada in."
Okay.
Formally announcing Canada's position in a letter to his counterparts, saying this agreement is highly beneficial to each of our countries.
We give them protection.
The American position on the future of a deal? Unclear. One of many moving parts to talks, including a revival of an old Donald Trump threat. The president posting a Bloomberg article about Canada's technical recession, exclaiming 51st state. A message reposted by the U.S. ambassador to Canada, Pete Hoekstra. Posts brushed off by the prime minister.
The president is an exceptionally active user of social media. You probably can chart his usage of it. It's only gone up in recent months, and we're not going to respond or react to everything.
The ambassador had said last year that the 51st state threats from the administration were over, something Hoekstra had largely avoided until a social media post on Tuesday that the U.S. Embassy in Ottawa said was the ambassador amplifying the president's message. Mackenzie Gray, Global News.
Well, and you have to realize this. Mark Carney's trying to suck up to the United States now, but he spent the last year on the global stage being the leader of the opposition against Trump globally. This does not look like you're flip-flopping back and forth. You don't look like somebody that you actually want to give a long-term trade deal to. What they're going to give is a year-on-year advancement, which is not going to be good in businesses that are in Canada right now.
And especially with this technical recession and now seeing how much grimmer the situation will continue to be with the U.S. Well, I don't know how many more promises Mark Carney can try to give to the people, and how much more people will continue to say, okay, fine, but we have to vote Liberal because that's what we usually do.
Well, best case scenario, Trump gives them a year-on-year extension. Worst case scenario, he actually cancels it and just takes out certain things that he wants.
And again, this only helps Alberta independence, and being able to bring all these topics up as they're happening, I think can also help as we move towards October 19th.
Well, especially if it's a year-on-year renewal. Every year it's going to come up. The timeline for Alberta independence looks a little longer now, so this will help us overall.
True. And lastly, from CBC Watcher says, quote, CBC is shocked that new CBS owners, the Ellisons, might soften coverage to help get Trump-era regulatory approvals for their massive media mergers.
Oh, and Trump may actually get some fair coverage in the United States. I don't expect Canadian media to change their tune, though.
No.
CBS News veteran journalist Scott Pelley has been fired from 60 Minutes, the longest-running primetime show in the United States. Pelley's termination comes after a heated exchange with the program's new executive producer and network leadership.
And he was a completely biased journalist, reported on ideology rather than journalism straight down the line.
As most of them do now.
And this is why they need to get rid of him, because they need viewership back in, and people aren't willing to watch these news stations that are extremely biased.
Because they've been completely betrayed and they're given up.
Reportedly accused CBS News chief Barry Weiss of murdering the show. Some believe she is steering CBS News to be friendlier to the Trump administration. Pelley's now responded with a lengthy statement. Marianne, can you take us through what he is alleging CBS News has done to 60 Minutes?
Well, he says they have completely changed the show, so much so that he says 60 Minutes has lost its DNA. And there's a very lengthy statement that I'll read a part of you of what
it lost its DNA a long time ago when it started apologizing for disgusting things from the trans community, but
what it says, for my part, new management has instructed me to inject falsehoods and bias into a politically sensitive story. I've been told to include assertions that are unverified. To date, in every case, I've managed to ignore these instructions or refuse them. Recently, politicians have been invited to choose correspondents for interviews on the broadcast. Giving politicians control over 60 Minutes interviews is not how this is done. He goes on to say, finally, incompetence and unprofessionalism in the new management have wreaked havoc. He also says that after his firing, really not holding back at all, saying that there's been a collapse of values at the top and that the principle.
And those are the key words, the collapse of values. That's the code word that liberals and globalists use very often. Oh, this is our value system and you're not part of a value system. That's how they justify giving biased reporting.
He has held dear over his 37-year career with CBS are now gone.
He is forward-facing. People know who he is in the U.S., but of course, many of the journalists who do a lot of the investigations at 60 Minutes not as well known. What are they being told?
Well, there was a staff memo. This was sent out by the show's executive producer, Nick Bilton, acknowledging that this would be really hard on the colleagues of Pelley, also saying that he's continuing to support them and the journalism that they do. So also saying that there were conversations to try to reach common ground. They're obviously not very successful now as we're talking about his firing.
He's the new executive producer, a guy who was a documentary filmmaker, no experience in television news at all.
Right, which is the crux of that conflict in that meeting prior to the firing.
Yeah, all right, Marianne, quite something.
And there's still going to be a lot of ideology involved there. That being said, at least there's small improvements being made, because on the other side of the border in Canada, it's completely captured at this point. Donald Trump has had the most unfair treatment of any person, literally globally, for the last decade. The fact that they're going to maybe give some fair coverage is good in my books.
They canceled all his social media accounts. His Pinterest was canceled.
And he was the president of the United States.
Exactly. That's how insane it is. But again, with 60 Minutes and with a lot of other CBS stuff, do they want to talk about what happened during the campaign, Kamala, etc.? No. They just want to complain and say that they used to do very fair journalism, which is sure.
Well, and it kind of leaves Canada out in the cold when they start reporting on Trump, because they like to use Americans' biased sources to give them legitimacy.
Todd says, they fund the communist CBC. Again, how much of the money Alberta is already sending being spent on that specifically? I'd love to know. Todd says, CBC just tell their own little fantasy story and never reality, $1 billion scam that you're paying for as well, which should be even more enraging. You're literally paying for them to lie to you and to lie to others that continue to perpetuate the system. James B. says, I'll bet that reruns of Gilligan's Islands would get more viewers than the CBC.
Yeah.
I'd watch it. Trollet says the Canada flag patch used to be an asset when traveling, no longer. No, now people, I think, would run away because they don't want you to poop anywhere. Trollet says independent media get more views, which is a good sign.
Well, I'm not going to be surprised if Canada changes their flag pretty soon, because they made the current Canadian flag not too long ago, a few decades ago. That being said, we've seen what happened in Minnesota. They literally turned the Minnesota flag to a Somali flag. I'm not going to be surprised if Canada turns the Canadian flag to the Indian flag.
Yeah, maybe they'll just bring the two red sides will now be green and orange.
Yeah.
And the white in the middle. Culture Casino says he is enriching himself. Typical commie play. Of course. And Blaine Sitter says Venezuela is a better deal. No regulations, no green agenda grift. Imperial oil will find a future. And again, I mean, the U.S. built most of that anyway. So they're just being able to go back and recoup, I would say, a lot of the things that they had already done.
And of course, the United States wants a great relationship with Alberta, because that's going to represent to the world the kind of relationship they want to build with other countries. Number one, but number two, the biggest oil reserve for the United States is actually Alberta, because all that oil is in the ground with the oil sands. So it's extremely hard to ever attack, bomb, or do anything against. And 55% of the oil supplied to the United States used to come from Alberta. Now with the Venezuela coming in, I think the numbers are going to be readjusted a little bit, but still a large portion of American oil comes from Alberta.
Culture Casino says, do Canadians realize they are fully cut out of AI?
Well, a lot of the AI data centers are actually being made within Alberta, because the cold weather makes it cheap to cool and things like that.
And but of using it.
Oh yeah.
Culture also says Mexico smartly rolled back all the Chinese commie stuff. Country of origin is going to be a huge deal going forward.
Yeah. But this is also why we need a good leader after Trump, because let's just say Gavin Newsom gets in there, or somebody even worse. Countries like Mexico are going to pedal all that back and start aligning with China again. We need somebody after Trump to really cement everything that he's kind of done over the last few years. Because I think his first term, they froze him out in his first term. He's been able to do a lot in the second term, though.
Coach Rose says, wait a minute, your lead negotiator is a woman? Oops. He looks like a woman.
That's their new negotiator. Their first negotiator got fired.
And Coach Rose says Carney is an idiot. Why did that conservative leader lose? Because he's also an idiot. They're all idiots.
It looks like you're starting to see the mask come off of the conservative leader now, and he seems to be very much a uniparty shill. I think he was able to hide it for a long time. A lot of people still believe in him, but the truth of the matter is, I think he's part of the uniparty now in Canada. I honestly think at some point, Carney's going to build all the mechanisms for federalization of natural resources, and he will perhaps step down, and then they'll bring Poilievre or Danielle Smith in there. So everybody kind of cheers for it. And then you're going to see this federalization, which will hurt citizens overall.
Solitaires Maximus says there's a silent majority of voters disenfranchised over elections that will, when they see the option for independence on an official ballot, won't hesitate to say yes. But you got to get them to that point where they don't even hesitate anymore. Troglodyte says a fringe, or Derek from Unacceptable Fringe calls them prostitutes. Yes. Coach Casino says Tony Docupil is building back the nightly show at CBS, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
William Rebell says Trump has sued a number of them and gotten millions in judgments or settlements. The BBC was one of them.
Well, and we're seeing a slow shift in mainstream media, especially within the United States. Again, if we can get a second president in there to cement a lot of these values, I think you're going to see that full shift.
But now we're heading over to RUMBLE. Please, before you head over there, don't forget to subscribe here on YouTube. It really does help us out. There's a 30-second wait screen. You can find our username down here, and we'll see you there in about 30 seconds.
Let's get ready to rumble!